The major is is online with us. I tell you, this is really got me researching my old files, my old history, and my memory is still good. I haven't lost my memory totally, so I'm dredging up so much of what I exposed. Me and my host back then in the '90s, Warren Anderson. Okay, so Alex is involved for 3 days with active duty military acting as security for this radio, or I'm sorry, the music festival. I'm assuming that's what it is, a music festival there. It's called Bottle Rock in Napa. So those of you that may be familiar with what Bottle Rock is, I'm assuming it's kind of something like a Woodstock type of festival with different bands, et cetera, et cetera. So here we see that I wonder why they would bring military in for security details. Given what we know about the Las Vegas psyops, the Las Vegas event, a similar type of band, music festival type of thing, and people being shot up. Okay, so it's simply modus operandi type of thing. Okay, so these are the type of things that just say, okay, just a big okay. So Alex goes on to say that he wanted to give an on-air encoded salute to the listeners, the members of the military I just met and who I knew were listening. So Alex has somehow got his wires crossed that the reason why he was pulled off the air is because he said, "Gee, damn it." Okay, that's not it at all. That was absolutely not the reason. The reason was because he was clearly acting highly intoxicated, and I was getting a lot of text messages from listeners saying, "Can you cut him off? It's bad. It's not good." Gave him every chance, and we went for the first hour before I had to say, "Well, this is not working," so we had to cut him out. And that was the last that Alex has been on the show, and it was okay. So we fast forward to what happened the following weekend. Okay. Oh boy, it was the following weekend. He's made headline news. He's involved in an armed SWAT team standoff, and he's lucky he didn't get shot and killed in this thing, literally. Okay. Now, let me skip on to the next page, page number 3. He said, and I'm reading now from his letter, "There's a bit more to the backstory, but in the interest of time, I will focus on the most pertinent events leading up to my incarceration. I'll be able to hopefully fill you in on further details at a later date." So basically, the story begins with my having secured a new apartment in El Sobrante after discovering the previous, I'm having a hard time reading this writing, the previous deal to secure an apartment in Vallejo only 2 weeks prior had gone sour. The person with whom I'd agreed to split a 4-bedroom apartment with had stiffed me, now paying his share of deposit, rent, etc. This leaving me to pay the entire amount, etc. So I'll skip on down here. So he says, after this four-bedroom apartment deal found out, his landlord says was then that the landowner told me he had another apartment that he just made ready in El Sobrante, I believe, in a 6-unit building where he was still busy remodeling the other units. I immediately liked the unit and had the Vallejo deposit transferred, paid the balance due, and signed a new month-to-month lease and began moving my belongings to this new place in mid-May. In the first few days of moving in, I met and introduced myself to a few of the neighbors, including a guy living in the house directly across the street. The address is 2640 40 Braxton Flores of La Crisanto Road, El Sobrante. Everything was going fine and things were looking bright until they weren't. Everything changed beginning Saturday, June 2nd. That evening, I was unpacking, sorting through my piles of stuff, grilling some meat on the BBQ up on my second-story landing, playing music on my sound system. At about 9 p.m., a full hour before local noise ordinance went into effect, I went out to check on the grill, and I saw a Contra Costa County sheriff's car in my driveway. I went down to ask what was going on, and Deputy B, I won't give his name on the radio, Deputy B responded by asking me to turn my music down. I didn't think it was that loud and asked him, had anyone complained about it? To which he replied, no. He just wanted me to turn it down. I reminded him, now as I know Alex doesn't do anything quite quietly and subtly. He's if he thinks he's right, he'll let you know it. Nothing inherently wrong with that. I reminded him, Alex writes, that the law on the books for the area regarding sound, the local noise ordinance, allowed for loud music, including construction equipment and music, parenthesis, to be permitted up to a measured threshold, parenthesis, which I was confident I was well below, all the way up to 10 p.m. on any given night, and the time then was only 9 p.m. So get the picture. Here's Officer B, Deputy Sheriff of the Contra Costa County, having Alex tell him what the law is. Now, not so good sometimes, right? I informed him, Alex says, I was well within my legal right, that I was on private property doing nothing wrong, and then reminded him additionally that he had stated that no one had complained, so I didn't understand why he was even in my driveway. That's a good question. Very good question. If nobody's complained, if there's no reason to be there, if there's no complaint, what's he really doing there? Good question. I then told him when the noise ordinance required me to reduce the volume that I would do it then, and that he was making an unlawful request by asking me to turn it down any time before 10 p.m. I then asked him to please leave me alone, promising him that at 10 p.m. I'd turn it down as required by law, and then returned upstairs to continue sorting through my stuff. About 9:45 p.m., I went back to check my grill and saw now there were several sheriff's cars on the street. I then grabbed my pocket video camera, began filming, and went back down again to the gate to my driveway, where now Officer B and several other deputies were asking me all kinds of odd questions, asking me about the Boycott Israel t-shirt that I had on, and then threatened to tow my Harley-Davidson motorcycle, which was, and still is, parked on the property's private lot off the street and just outside the gate. If you Google Earth 3780 La Colina Road, El Sobrante, California, La Colina Road, El Sobrante, California, 94809, and zoom into the street view, you'll see the lot and the second floor balcony. At some point, deputies began putting their hands on my Harley and began moving it, and upon seeing this, I proceeded to unlock my gate and go out into my driveway. As soon as I do, bam, I am thrown down to the ground by Officer B, cuffed with his hands behind his back, and then pulled up off the ground by my wrists. dislocating my right shoulder. I am thrown into a car and taken to Martinez Detention Facility, where I spend the next 24 hours. I am then released and given a court date to appear July 25th for the charge of, quote, drunk in public. Except I was not drunk, nor was I in public. No blood alcohol test was ever given. I was not read Miranda rights, and upon requesting a copy of the charges, I learned that no police report was filed. I arrived home at 11 p.m. the next night, slept the night in agonizing pain, and the next morning drove myself one-armed to Kaiser Richmond ER, where I spent the afternoon getting my arm reset under general anesthesia. I then drove home afterward and spent the next 2 days resting and recuperating, still in excruciating pain. I took a job assignment the following Thursday to go out to AT&T Ballpark and help build the enormous sound system for the Genetech annual party featuring Christina Aguilera. I favored my good arm, directing rookie underlings to do the heavy lifting, and made it through the day productively, not further injuring myself. Friday, rehearsal day, I had off, and I returned Saturday for the show and loadout, the Genetech with concert with Aguilera, right? We had the truck parked, and we're all heading home just after sunset the next day, Saturday, June 10th. So he just gets, now follow this, he's just finishing up with packing the truck out on Saturday, and he gets home around sunset, right? So this is Saturday, June 10th, quote, all hell broke loose. Next day, that morning, I slept in, got up to watch news on Fox, and went out to the upstairs landing to fire up my barbecue again for lunch. Sometime later, when I went out to put meat on the grill, I looked out and saw some guy I didn't know across the street flipping me off. I thought to myself, WTF, such great neighbors. You gotta know Alex to know this. I flipped him off back. That's classic Alex. And went back inside. A while later, upon checking the grill, I noticed a gopher digging in the dirt of my yard in the back. So I grabbed my BB gun. That's just, I can just imagine this may be looking like a Ralphie Red Ryder with a compass in the stock BB gun. I'm not sure, okay, but it's a BB gun, Alex says. I grabbed my BB gun and said to myself, target practice, as I attempted to sight the gopher into my scope, mimicking and reciting Bill Murray's classic lines from Caddyshack as I did so. The gopher moved across my yard toward the front gate, and I followed, tracking it from my second-floor balcony as it disappeared under some wood near the gate. I waited 2 to 3 minutes, looking through my scope to see if it would reappear, which it didn't, and so I gave up and went back inside. I then put more meat on the grill and continued watching news while I began sorting mountains of laundry. A bit later, I grabbed the meat off the grill and ate. A few hours later, so this is mid-afternoon now, I went to clean the grill and looked out to see a large number of sheriff's cars, the same ones that were there before, right? Yet again, and I thought, oh no, not again. I instantly grabbed my camera and began filming, meanwhile noticing several deputies taking positioning all around my building, pointing high-powered rifles at me. I shouted down to the gate, "What's this all about?" I'm on private property and have done nothing wrong. And the only response I get is yells of, "We want you to come down and talk to us." Now, after my experience the week prior, I declined, repeating my question of why are they here, to which I get no answer. I continue filming as this is going on back and forth, continues for the next several hours. At some point, one deputy in a neighbor's yard shouts at me to give him my cell phone number so he can talk to me. I yell it to him, and he calls me saying he wants me to come outside and talk to them. I tell him, we are talking right now. Good point. Why don't you go down there? Talk to me. This this is not made up. I'm sorry. Crazy stuff, right? We're talking right now. What's the problem? Why are you here? I still get no answer, so I tell him to go away. I'm on a private property and have done nothing wrong. All this falls on deaf ears. 2 hours into the video recording, I have to stop the camera, and I'm offloading the footage so far taken to my laptop and begin an upload to an invisible link on YouTube. Meanwhile, continuing to film as I placed the camera, now at a fixed location at the top of the outside stairs, pointed out toward the gate. I then went inside, called 911, called anyone I could think of, and no one answered. This was Saturday evening now, and everyone was out. As night began to fall, so he's from 2 p.m. till nightfall, probably, 6.5, 7 hours of this. As night began to fall, now SWAT teams in full gear were showing up. Snipers were aiming at me every time I stepped out my door. And now drones are buzzing outside my windows. I am now terrified. I tried to go to sleep, hoping they would just all go away. About 10 p.m. now, some woman is shouting over a bullhorn, "Alex, please come out. We just want to talk to you." Meanwhile, my phone is blowing up with texts and many phone calls. Then they pull up some military tank type of thing, armored vehicle, to my gate and begin firing off some super loud siren for the next half hour or so. Deviously aware they intend to drag me off to jail again for what I have no idea, for the sake of allowing the entire neighborhood to get some sleep. This is after 10 o'clock now. I talk about breaking a noise ordinance, right? I finally go down to my gate, which is now wide open because they cut the chain. And I'm met by SWAT in full combat gear with semi-autos pointed at me and a barking attack dog ready to maul me as I'm ordered to get on my stomach. I'm cuffed, put in a car, read Miranda rights, and told I'm charged with 1, brandishing a deadly weapon. I want to see the probable cause statement. What did they confiscate? Was it a BB gun? Is that the deadly weapon? 2, making terrorist threats. And 3, resisting arrest. I'm taken first to Martinez, then Richmond, aka West County Detention Facility, where I've been now for the last 3, now 4 weeks. Going on 5 weeks. The very corrupt Chinese DA stated, neighbors feared I'd shoot up the neighborhood. And then the Hispanic judge set my bail at $2 million cash. And understand, that's not a bond, that's cash only, $2 million. My bail bonds friend that was on this show, actually, Clayton Carlos, when I told him that, he looks at me like, what? What? You don't get murder murder suspects getting that type of big time bond. It doesn't make sense. Meanwhile, granting Braxton Flores a restraining order, which is Braxton Flores is his landlord, I believe, a restraining order prohibiting me from going within 100 yards of my own apartment. A request to reduce my bail. This is he was assigned a public defender. A formal request to reduce bail of my preliminary hearing last Tuesday was denied. Additionally, the landlord's attorney sent me a summons telling me of eviction proceedings a day after I'd mailed him my 30-day notice of intent to vacate. This entire charade made headlines here. Not only headlines, Alex, but news. I mean, TV news crew. I mean, I was able to get actual copies of this. The TV news crews were there. You made big time news there, buddy. So he goes on and says, I have to continue, trying to contact friends. I have friends lined up to move my belongings into storage, but for some reason the landlord's attorney so far has not granted them his friend's entry. Could it be the landlord just wants to take possession of his property? I don't know. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? I have till the end of July to get my stuff out and presently have no means to do so. He emphasizes in big letters, I need help big time. The public defender does not appear to be forthcoming or motivated to properly defend me and clearly overlooked obvious contradictions in the so-called witness false testimony during the prelim the other day. I have a private defense law firm ready to take my case, but need someone to pay the retainer. Please help me. He's in big letters with exclamation point. So here is the contact information for all involved currently, including the few friends who have set up prepaid accounts, so I can call them collect from here, as well as a few whom I believe will want to help once they return from vacations. Now here's the deal. I mean, everything is set up in these prisons to be moneymakers. I mean, to call a cell phone, it's a per minute charge that they make just for the right to call somebody on the cell phone. It's crazy. If it's anything like my local jail, it's like $5 for a minute or so. It's big time. And then, of course, he says that the food is absolutely terrible. It's like stale bologna. It's kind of rancid that is fed, and peanut butter that's rancid. To get better food, then he has to buy it from the commissary. So he's saying he's lost about 20 pounds and not feeling well because he has no money to buy food. Anyway, so this is the story. Now, I want to just break in right here and I want to get Major. What's your thoughts on what I just read to you?
It sounds like Alex. It sounds exactly like how he would get himself into that situation, but it would be escalated under the wrong circumstances, and especially if he was somehow agitated in another way. When I saw those news reports, there was one that actually was they were going when they were doing all of the screeching this truck that had this speaker, and I mean, I can't imagine anyone outside of a half-mile radius wouldn't have just been annoyed by it. It was, and they had it just pointed right at his place. To knowing him the way that I do, and he's got drones around, and now this starts up. He had to be just absolutely terrified out of his mind. A terrible situation. I'm really glad that he got word to you, and of course I'll be helping out in any way I can. But yeah, I mean, $2 million. Okay, and I mean that's the first thing that I was asking. I'm like, I don't know him to own a rifle. I don't know he, just that makes no sense to me. I just never knew him to own a firearm, a rifle that way. And he's certainly to be pointing it at other people, which is what they were alleging. I just it's certainly heavy-handed, even for. I mean, I'd like to see the formal complaint, and maybe we can get a hold of those documents and start getting a hold of the legal documents. But yeah, let's see what we can do to make sure he gets a decent attorney.
Absolutely. So here's the public defender. So far, I've sent information. I sent a letter to her, as you did. An email request as well as a hard copy. Jennifer Welch. Alex's friend asked us to send character statements to her, which I did. I know you did, Major. So Jennifer Welch, public defender, her phone number is 510-412-4900. Jennifer.welch at pd, public defender.cccounty.us. Jennifer.welch at pd, public defender, cccounty.us. I sent requests showing, because I am a licensed pastor, I'm a licensed minister. I said I'm involved in prison ministry here in Utah. I regularly go to minister to prisoners here. I understand pretty darn well the legal do's and don'ts of involved with what's called clergy penitent relationship. It's as sacrosanct as attorney-client privilege in many instances, and to effectively counsel people, we just simply request probable cause statements of the case against them. We're not acting as an attorney, but to give them spiritual counseling, we do need to have a little bit of history to see if it jives what they're telling us in their story. You see what I'm saying? And it's always been forthcoming. But in the case of this has been, 2 weeks ago, Major, we sent this information to Jennifer Welch. And I have not,
it would be about 2 weeks now.
I have not received anything, zero response as far as probable cause, what they have. I specifically wanted to see what weapon was he brandishing. A BB gun? I talked to a close friend he's probably listening in tonight, who's skilled in courts, and he knows all about the Ninth Judicial system there in San Francisco and how incredibly corrupt it is in his opinion. And when I told him about the BB gun, he says to their liberal pinko type of mindset, a BB gun is a deadly weapon. Brandishing a BB gun is grounds for something like this. They have zero tolerance. I mean, it could have been an air pistol or just a flat out squirt gun, and they may have by making terrorist threats. What is that involved, Major? I mean, how do you make a terrorist threat by saying you are under, you're on private property, not hurting anybody? How is that a terrorist threat?
I haven't the slightest. These are the same people that have no idea anything about guns in the first place. You hear them talking about, well, this is a semi-automatic. It's like, no, wait a minute. That's actually a fully automatic weapon, and it just sounds bad because they can put semi in front of it, and they don't understand that, hey, listen, that particular weapon is fully automatic and is more lethal, but you insist on calling it semi because it sounds worse. Same people that ban hollow point ammunition in San Francisco because it just sounds bad, but they don't realize that if you have a concealed carry and you are in a city, you're likely want to use hollow points instead of full jacket because you've got a populated area. You don't want to, want a bullet going through somebody and through walls. and killing people behind them. So it's if you have something that looks like a gun and somebody that disagrees with you, you're in a big load of trouble. And I think, I mean, we're witnessing that to the absolute maximum extreme that I never thought was possible. And I mean, again, I'm just shaking my head. When I saw that, I'm like, wait a minute, that's got to be a mistake. $2 million. $2 million. I mean,
Okay. Yeah. Let the punishment fit the crime. And Clay Carlos knows people, of course, in the county down there in Clay County, and he offered to to see what we can do. But so he did make a few phone calls, and they verified the case number with his bail bondsman friend, and it's cash only. It's no bond. So the way if it was a bond, we could post it, and it's still like about $100,000, and when it's all told, it's not cheap. For what? For brandishing a BB gun and yelling out Bill Murray type of things on Caddyshack? It's deeper than this. It has to be deeper than this. Now let me share with you where I want to go in the second hour, Major. I mean, this is hard hitting. It's got to be addressed. It really, really does. There's, I want those of you listening that may not understand what I'm talking about. I want you to do your own homework and research. It's called, the substance is called neuroelectromagnetic frequency weaponry, also called psychotropic weapons. Now, I'm sorry, psychotronic. Psychotronic. Psychotronic frequency weapons. I did show after show after show on this because I was watching and monitoring this during the 90s, early 2000s, especially during the George W. administration, and what was going on as being tested. I had whistleblowers come. This is well before Julian Assange, okay, and WikiLeaks. But I had individuals that were active military that were telling me off the record what was being experimented on. Weapons against the Iraqi people, against the Afghans. These Blackwater type of private. These are private guys. These are private contractors. They're not in military, okay? They're coming in and they target a neighborhood, and they'll come in and all kinds of craziness goes out. I mean, we're talking about people just acting completely insane. When you look, this is again, I did reports on this back in 2002, all the way going back right after September 11th, because you see, if we're talking about a false flag, if September 11th is absolutely caused by the Zionist neocons as a false flag to get us into the Middle East to regime change in Iraq, and of course the Taliban to be ousted to protect all the opium poppy fields. So this is really what's going on. Then of course they're going to need to control people's minds through psychotronic psyops, and those people that are aware of the story behind the story concerning this, they need to paint them as crazy nutcases and make them lose credibility and listening share. That's the whole psyops agenda, and believe me, there's manuals written about this and tools they use to accomplish it. Are you with me, Major?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I know you've been talking about, but Alex as well, back before he introduced us, and that's why I was so terrified that they were using this. They were using the very thing that I thought might have caused this in the first place, to get him to come out. And man, it's terrifying. It really is terrifying. And he just, to be fair, also, I mean, he really wasn't himself. He wasn't acting. He was acting like Alex, but it was just there was something else there that was really askew that I know we were all worried about there for a while, and unfortunately, it culminated into this, and it's just curious. It's more than curious. It's disturbing.
Well, I pulled that. This is an article that I actually have in my massive files on psychotropic weapons. Now, this was put out by, of all things, a member of the Russian Federation. This is a whistleblower from Russia. You can go to truefacts.org, trufax.org, click on the link entitled Brain and Technology Update, and Update Part 3. You'll see these are neurophysicists now blowing whistles that, and let me quote this exactly. Neurophysicists have whistleblown, have just come out and gone on the record that there are weapons produced by DARPA under the Black Ops of the CIA again, and I quote, they have what's called sono or sound chemistry. They have what they call applications now. They, and I quote, they can absolutely put the vibratory patterns of such psychotropic chemicals such as LSD. Timothy Leary's worked with the CIA to figure out what LSD did and why. They can mimic that, put LSD into a person by a psychotropic beam, a microwave that absolutely will target them. And they can do it through walls. All they have to do is know your cell phone number. That's what's scary about this. Now, here's exactly what this article says. Quote, carefully shaped, personalized sonic vibrations can be directly put into the human brain, which can then induce altered states of mind, exactly as if they were injecting the person with a drug. The powerful hypodermic effect of such sound chemistry has some incredible applications, for good, of course, but it also has some terrifying and very scary applications. And I quote, it means that electromagnetic beam weapons can be used to target individual people and drug them against their will. I'm not making this stuff up. This is in a 2003 classified report. Quote, beam weapons can be used remotely at a distance. When combined in large-scale satellite systems, such beam weapons could potentially drug entire populations en masse. This is what was directed into populations, as I understand from my whistleblower, populations in Kabul, Afghanistan, as well as places in Iraq. They were test subjects. They were guinea pigs. How chilling is that, Major?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, you've got this. Is that something also similar to what they were using in Cuba with
yes.
diplomatic staff down there?
Yes, there's
people they were losing their hearing. I mean, there's some very real physical effects, and not just mental. These guys are like physically affected by this. And I think there was something else that was going on. I'll have to double check on that. There was another instance, and I'll check our site right now and see if I can't dig that up. But
you're right. You're right on point. There's strong evidence that there was a different sort. There's multiple different types of this, depending on how they want to target somebody. If they just want to make somebody sick, vomiting, nausea, explosive diarrhea, they can focus that on them. Okay. It doesn't affect your brain. It doesn't make you appear intoxicated and or drugged. So I got to tell you, the next day, I was confident that Alex would contact me, apologize profusely, because there was one other time where he started on the show and he said, I've had too much to drink. I'm going to have to back off. And he called me the next day and says, I'll never do that again. I apologize. I had a little bit too much to drink. I wasn't on my A game. And he apologized profusely. So this is why when I sent him the text, I says, Alex, please, you promise not to do this again. You're better than this. So I'm just assuming he's drunk. If that's the case, he's going to sleep it off, and the next day he's going to do the same thing. I'm sorry, I'm having a hangover. I must have been bad. I'll listen to the transcript. I'll listen to the audio, and that's what I thought would happen, but it didn't happen. He was just as overbearing and nasty the next 2 or 3 days.
Oh yeah, I got the same thing, and I was just normally it's okay. I mean, especially if even if we get into some sort of argument where he wasn't drinking at all and we lock horns on something, he'll.
Guys, the music is on, so I cut off the studio.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, and I know we don't hear the music. We have to listen on the background, and then I will start our bumper music. So,
Okay, we're ready to go.
Let me start the studio again.
Okay, I guess we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're having a little trouble getting our bump music coordinated. I apologize for that. Thank goodness we do have somebody that's at least connecting us. To the good folks at the Goldwater. Thanks for tuning in to the Simulcast. Welcome to the story behind the story. Major, you still with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Golly, thanks again for taking the time. You're right. You're right there. I actually thought seriously about leaving my place where I'm visiting here in Flagstaff and heading into San Francisco as well. But there's not a whole lot I can do, and I am 90% convinced. I am 90% convinced that we've been targeted. And let me explain why. About the same time that this episode went down with Alex, I've been noticing some really strange, weird things happening as far as microwave frequencies at my home in Ogden and my business as well. I've been so involved in studying this information. I've actually invested in a series of sensitive machines that can test when microwave frequencies are being used. I can, if you just turn on your microwave oven, you can sense it, but there's different gigahertz and levels you can actually measure. I began to be suspicious because I have two dogs. I have a really brilliant, smart 3-year-old yellow lab. I mean, this dog is exceptionally smart, almost human smart. I can talk to her, and she's my good buddy. She started acting very, very, very strange. She would not leave her kennel. She would whine. Animals, especially dogs, have elevated senses. They have been known to, they connect. If there's evil entities around, they can sense and feel them. She would not even go out to use the bathroom. She has a way that she can open her own door. She rings a bell. She opens the door, slides out. She goes out to her yard and uses the facilities out there. She won't do it. She whines and sits there and rolls over and is obviously in pain. I had to physically carry her outside so she can do her business, and then she immediately, with her tail between her legs, runs back in the house. This is ongoing. So when I saw these things happening with my dog, I go out and lo and behold, I do my microwave sensor, and it's off the charts. Now, some people say, well, Dr. Ott, why aren't you doing the same thing as Alex is doing? Simply because I in my business and my residence, I have countermeasures taken. Okay, the dogs feel it. Okay, but I'm here to tell you that I've studied because I know I've read all of this with Senator Frank Church's declassified documents. I know the frequencies they use. I know the microwaves, and for everything they use, there is a counterbalancing effect. It's basically a broadcast wave of 432 hertz. That's why I promote 432 hertz so much. So, Major, I'm telling you, we're not crazy here. Things are happening. Alex is being targeted. Unlike myself, I have a pretty doggone good support base here. I have a loving wife, family, friends that I can count on here. But guess what? Alex is alone. I mean, he's just really on an island. You know what I mean?
Yeah, those are the people that you'd want to target because they don't have anyone to check in with to say, hey, why are you behaving that way, or what's going on? And I don't think we're at all crazy about this. I mean, there's a reason that there are certain industries, such as there are builders now who specialize in making sure that, of course, you have to lay out a pretty penny for it, and your cost per square foot is going to go up with new construction. But you can put copper mesh, and they have tiles, specific tiles that you can use on your roof, composite tiles, or you can mesh in. And then they also have, and it's incredibly expensive again, paint that you can use that has an extremely high copper content, and it's a base coat paint that it's something crazy though. I mean, I don't know. I think it's something like $80 a gallon for this stuff. But there's a reason that these industries exist. And for a while there, I was thinking about I had a home in Colorado, and it was out. I mean, I had a decent chunk of land, and I was very concerned about it because you could get into these situations where somebody could, be the way the house was situated, that you could be a target. And I looked into it just out of curiosity, and full-on oscilloscopes that they run about $30,000, and then of course you got to go out to Tennessee to get trained and buy one out there. But yeah, I mean it's a huge industry, and that industry would not exist if there wasn't some sort of problem. So yeah, just take a look at it from that point of view, and you certainly know that something's going on.
Well, I got to tell you, because of my radio shows that I did during the Bush administration era, I was really probably, there may have been others. I didn't know anybody else that was as up to date as far as my files. I mean, I could talk for weeks about the technology specifically, and who's making these weapons and why, and the agenda. So during this time, when the Iraqi war was going on, and more and more people were coming, they were called TIs, targeted individuals. Many had the exact same symptoms as Alex. They just went. Friend says, "What have you been drinking? Your speech is all slurred." I am not drunk. And they said, "You are. What have you been drinking? What have you been smoking? Are you doing crack?" And they get mad. "No, I'm not. What are you upset about? You're just cutting me, And they actually take blood tests to prove they're not. I mean, I've interviewed people like this. All right, it's stunning. Because of I remember this so well. I was actually in my place in North Idaho. I was actually on my boat, and my cell phone rang, and it's a number I didn't recognize. And this fellow comes on and he says, "I'm so-and-so. I'm the producer of Jesse Ventura's Conspiracy Theory show." "Oh, how can I help you?" "Well, we're doing a background history. Jesse wants to do a show on what he called psychotronic weapons, the specific frequency weapons, FW. And we understand you can help us." I said, "Okay. Wow. Let's talk." So we talked for literally hours on the phone, and I said, here's what I just have on memory. Here's where I can. Here's if I were to do a show, here's the people that I would talk with. He says, "Well, can we come out and film you?" I said, "Absolutely not. I will not go on. I'm not going on the TV." "Well, why not? If it's true." I said, I may look dumb, but I'm not stupid, and I don't have an ego that needs to be, "Oh, look, he's an expert on it." This is something you don't want to be targeted at. You don't want to be singled out. That's what I told him. I told him that, okay? I said, what you're going to find out as Jesse digs into this, as you dig into it, as his team, right? You're going to find a couple things happening. You're going to find out this is the underbelly of all underbellies. This is the deep state in action, okay? You're going to find this out. And I'm telling you, it's going to shock you when you find how deep it goes. And as Senator Frank Church said in interviewing the manufacturers of these in the Senate hearings, the MK Ultra Senate hearings. It actually is in the record, in the transcript. I have a copy of it. He said to this high-level DARPA jerk off, well, what's to stop you from targeting the whole Senate chamber? And because these weapons are so indetectable, or the House of Representatives, or all of Congress, or the Supreme Court? And his answer was chilling. How do you know we're not? And just laughed.
Whoa.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's because it's indetectable. It's a perfect weapon. So what I shared with this producer of Jesse Ventura's show, I said, listen, I can. Here's people that I've interviewed. You're talking to me on my cell phone. I have their information tucked away in my cell phone library. I can give you their contact information. I'm sure they would be more than happy to, because they're whistleblowers. They want the publicity. I don't. Okay, I do radio. People know, and people that say, well, believe me, the hate mail I've gotten over this, you're just lost your mind. You can't really believe. You're paranoid. You're absolutely the height of paranoia to believe this stuff is going on. I've been there and done those attacks. I promise you, when you do the research objectively, Mr. Ventura will get all kinds. This is vitriolic. This is a litmus test. Nothing else you'll ever do as far as conspiracy theory will even match up to this. Okay? It's the worst of the worst. It's the biggest show you can ever do, but I think the most important. So I congratulate you and give you kudos for wanting to do this. Okay? So those listeners that may not, just do a YouTube search, Jesse Ventura conspiracy theory show. The last I knew it was up there. His last show, as I understand, was the one on the topics this topic of direct energy weapons. Just Google up Jesse Ventura's show, DEW, direct energy weapons. You'll see it. You'll see him interviewing Dr. Fred Bell. Now, Dr. Fred Bell is one of the pioneers and developers of these weapons and the whole technology. He went on Jesse Ventura's show, blowing the whistle, this time big time, as to how these things operate, how they work. Jesse Ventura's son, who was part of the crew, this is all part of the documentary you'll watch, said, "Dad, you're crazy to do this. You're shooting yourself in the foot. It's not that you're crazy believing in this, you're crazy exposing it." His sons tried to get him to back off, and Jesse, always being Jesse, he says, well, this is all the more reason I got to do it. There is no more conspiracy theory Jesse Ventura show. Coincidence? Well, 2 weeks after videotaping the show and editing it, Dr. Fred Bell had a massive condition, died quickly. My friend Warren Anderson, who was really in good shape, physically speaking, as we did shows on this, we interviewed individuals that documented that one part of this weapon, one intense frequency, can actually put a frequency of something called sodium morphate into the target individual. The frequency of sodium morphate does one thing. It causes a massive seizure of the muscle called the heart. It's indetectable. Sodium morphate is, if you do your homework, folks, it's the CIA's number one method to take out, with extreme prejudice, enemies of the state, as they so call. And terrorists, enemies of the state, include people like Alex and Truott that dare to tell the truth. Take them out. Wow. So the frequency comes in of sodium morphate, you have a major heart attack. My co-host, I'm telling you, Alex is the second co-host. My good friend co-host Warren Anderson was out with his friends and family in Kanab. Met some military guys there. They came up and introduced themselves like they knew him. He says, how do you know me? Oh, we've been watching you for quite a while. He's out with his family. He's a family man. He's at a picnic. Stands up, grabs his chest, drops over, dead. Cardiac infarction, heart attack. True story, folks. I had told Warren about this before. I said, this psychotronic weapon that can use a microwave that puts the frequency of sodium morphate in. Well, part of my research in my PhD doctorate research is showing that for every frequency that is put in either through microwave or whatever, there is a debilitating frequency, a DF. Well, I calculated the sodium morphate frequency that could beam in a microwave and calculated DF frequency. And I put that in as, as a guard around me. I mean, I carry this stuff around with, am I paranoid? Better be safe than sorry. I have this as a frequency generator going 24/7 around my being with the computer and my cell phone. Let them, if they're trying to beam me with the same thing, let's assume that my buddy Warren Anderson was targeted. I believe he was. He had absolutely, he was in great physical shape. He was in better shape than I was. Okay, he actually went in for a physical exam. He jogged a lot, worked out. He had his triglycerides, all of his blood chemistry for risk of heart attack or stroke were very minimal. He was absolutely in tip-top shape, folks. It was such a shock. I suspected then he was targeted. The sodium morphate worked on him. I'm still here. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just too stupid. Maybe they don't want me out there. But believe me, Alex has been targeted, and myself has been targeted by Zionistas. We call them the Bobbsey twins. Everything that they're saying that Alex is involved in, and the websites and attacks on me personally, are saying that I'm part of this government psyops program and I am an agent and all this stuff. It's exactly what they're doing. Trying to reflect and cast on to me and Alex. That's a reality, folks. I won't mention their names. They're just flat out part of Big Pharma. They're stooges, folks. They're shills. Listen, the more you study this topic, as Jesse Ventura did, I got to tell you, the director a week or so later, Mr. Ventura called me personally and asked me, directly asked me to be on the show as well. I says, with all due respect, absolutely not. I've been there, done that. I don't need that type of national exposure. Well, you do radio shows. I said, yeah, but it's limited audience, and I'm not. I don't have nearly the following you have. I don't want to become that infamous. And it turned out my gut instinct was right on that. The people that came forward on that show have had nothing but problems and have lost their lives. This goes back again to what these whistleblowers in Russia coming out, and I've written about this many times, and I just said we can't fear this. Talk about the ultimate human rights abuses. I mean, we've got to be aware of this. People are just blissfully unaware. Your comments, Major. Jump in.
Yeah, I was just looking at some of the stuff I found on 8chan about this, and they're saying of course, this is a non, but this isn't meant to be hardcore facts. They're saying there's a different phases of how they do this. And the first phase is the harassment/surveillance program. During the phase of this government program, a person is broken physically and mentally. The methods used are typical CIA and FBI tactics, like COINTELPRO tactics. They use Echelon, Tempest, microchips, implants, through-wall radar, informants, neighbors, co-conspirators to harass, discredit, or harm an individual. Victims lose their families, jobs, homes, and cars. Ultimately, the goal is to destroy a person's life, which will isolate them from family and friends. The isolation is needed to have access to the person to conduct many of the other experiments planned on them. privacy and constitutional rights are stripped away. So it looks like, I mean, that just makes sense. You're going to isolate somebody and you're going to take away everything that they've got. And then they start using directed energy weapons on you. This is not, I mean, all of the technology is there. It does exist. And the concept that people aren't using it, to me, is insane. I mean, that's just, that's naive. It's naive. So I'm just poking around a little bit more here.
Yeah,
but yeah, terrifying.
When I was doing the reporting on this, first of all, back in the 90s, okay, I'm still Mormon, still there, but I'm showing that so much of this is tied. The research of Cameron, Owen Cameron, all the things put out by the church administration or by the church research team led me to inescapably conclude that much of this was done by Mormons. I mean, and this blew me away as an active Mormon. It goes back to General Brent Scowcroft, who was very high-level Mormon, the national security director, during the Reagan and Bush administrations, and still extremely powerful in the black ops community. I won't go. It's a whole other show I can do about Scowcroft's ties to DARPA and the development of these weapons. Okay, so believe it or not, when I started reporting on this, there was a concerted effort with my church authorities to engage my brother, who's a medical doctor, he's younger than myself, but he's a medical doctor practicing still today, to actually get a judge to sign commitment papers to have me committed to a mental institution. I kid you not, folks. So here's my brother saying, you really believe that you're being, this weaponry is making people crazy, yada, yada, yada. And so they went before the judge and went out and actually they were going to forcibly commit me. I had to have an interference with another medical doctor team of a friendly medical doctor to ask me some questions. And here's how I answered the questions, because they were trying to paint me to the judge as being completely psychotic and crazy, and I need to be forcibly committed and given a chemical lobotomy. The question was, do you really believe that the federal government harasses its citizens by means of beam weaponry? If so, we believe this indicates that you have mental illness. Here's my response to that question. The CIA, MKUltras, and similar covert psychological warfare test programs were first exposed by the U.S. Senate Frank Church Committee and showed unequivocally that certain government agencies can and do perform these atrocities on targeted citizens. Then I put source documents. Dr. Ewan Cameron worked at the Allen Institute, McGill University. I also showed the Canadian government was partnershiping with us also. So I gave him the answer to that. Says, if you think I'm crazy, then how about Senator Church and all of his staff and all of the, I've got actual file cabinets full of documents. So please look at those before you make judgment. So they asked me, says, do you believe this is coming off of a radio signal? I said, well, that's one way. There's a radio transmission that can happen. They can beam this frequency in, but it's more directed in microwave energy. And so I had to show them. This is why the question is, nobody has ever documented the effects you describe as being real. And I said, no, there's tons of evidence. And I had to give all of the documentation. The next question was, why have the general public, we the people, the general public, never heard about neuroinfluential weapons, or what were called back then? I said, just because you haven't heard of it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I mean, this is my defense and all. And I gave document after document to them that I showed what happened in the mid-1960s, and this is all brought out by exposure in these declassified CIA documents. They had microwave weapons they used in the U.S. Embassy in Moscow in the 1960s to influence the KGB, and the KGB did it back and forth and back and forth. Okay, so they said, and the biggest thing they says, we believe your alarmist tactics. In other words, saying this on public radio is an alarmist tactics. That indicates prima facie evidence you are mentally ill. My response to that is say, okay, let's assume I am mentally ill. Let's assume that what your definition of mentally ill is that I have different experiences in life than you may have had. Okay? So let's say that I am mentally ill, but if I have absolute proof that electronic weapons are used and have been used on individuals, and I can give you 34 individuals to talk to. It's all listed. I've confirmed they are not crazy. They have documented symptoms. So let's say that we're all mentally ill. We're in this delusion together. What steps could anybody take to defend themselves from electronic weaponry? Because you don't believe electronic directed energy weapons really exist. So how would anybody that has proof that they exist, how can they protect themselves against it without appearing to be crazy? You see the conundrum? Okay. And what I also showed is that most target individuals that have been successfully, put away in institutions and or incarcerated for long term in jail facilities, there's a pretty, just like you said before, Major, most of them are loners. They are loners because they have no support base. Ah, my goodness. See how it fits with Alex?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, and if they're not a loner to start with, the whole program is to make sure that they are, which is to get them in that place where, and that's pretty much easily done. And then using these, the other thing that they're saying is they're using ultra high frequencies as well. And I understand. I mean, a lot of this stuff is that some of this stuff is rigged into satellites. It would have to be, I would assume, a geosynchronous satellite. It's just, I just can't help, who's in charge of this, really? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the side of the NSA doing whatever the hell they want, and it was interesting. They just lost, oh man, I don't know how many. It was something like, it was like in the 360 some million records, each individual record being a phone call, somehow just got lost, because somebody was looking into, hey, do you guys have warrants for any of this? I mean, you're supposed to have something. I think the major problem here is that you don't have a group of knowledgeable judges who have to be on call 24 hours a day and be in very good communication with the people deploying these the surveillance or even this type of I mean, certainly this weaponry isn't legal, but on the surveillance side of things, you need to. It starts with having knowledgeable judges who are in good communication, have good relationships with the agents that are asking for it, and just like any judge should have with local authorities that want to do a wiretap or that want to do a search or start performing surveillance. And I don't see that happening. And, it hasn't happened for the longest time. And of course, the Clintons would never want you to have done that. And the Obama administration just almost encouraged it, that nothing like that would ever get developed. So hopefully something comes about where you get some responsible judges who are electronically signing these things, so that at least the first phase of this, somebody's going to have a good reason to start doing this type of thing. At least start, because it all starts with surveillance, all of it. You need to know who your subject is. And if it stops there and somebody's responsible for it, then maybe that'll curtail a little bit of this deep state activity, which is obviously just gone rampant.
Here's the problem with that scenario, Major. With all due respect, this is beyond the scope of anybody coming out with judges' surveillance or anything going on. Because here's follow the paper trail. This is first of all a military, and it's black ops military. We're talking about compartmentalized individuals, and I'm sure that Travis Air Force Base there has got people that know this. Suppose that a gentleman like Aquino, okay, who's there at the Presidio and is there active in that very neck of the woods, sees that Alex Studer and Truott are potential dangerous guys. So Thomas Aquino, with his high department, his departmental clearance as a general, can put orders to certain people to come out and to basically covertly survey Alex. And this is where the link is to those individuals working at security details on his show. This is when his problems all began. This is when all this craziness began, right there. Okay, so they let's hypothetically say that they have the latest technology, which is as unobtrusive as a little stick tape recorder. I mean, I've seen these. They're like little, that little blue beam that you see on Men in Black. Beep. It's that inobtrusive. It's that simple. Okay. They show it. They just play around with it. They zap Alex with it, and it's like, there it is. So Alex then goes into and suppose this deputy is ex-military. Suppose he gets a call and says, "Hey, you want to make a few $100? Here, we got this guy. You gotta follow the program." He doesn't have to do anything illegal. He just has to come and say, "Hey, make up something. Your music's too loud, Mr. Studer," and then just take him down and put him in to get him in the system, get him a record. I see this going step by step by step by step, and totally logical to me. Now, suppose what's the next phase? Well, this is where I got it. Is it paranoid to think if you get on the ground with this and go to meet with Alex, they're not going to target you too? Do we not try and do it? Do we just ignore Alex and let him? This is the thoughts that I've been toying with.
That's not an option. That's not an option.
It's not an option, but you're taking a real risk. I submit doing that if we're right with this. Okay.
Well, so be it.
Okay. So do you have other people that's a support base? Can you go in there with Dom is there in the area? There's others that Dom knows that. I just want to have don't be a lone ranger, okay? That's what I'm showing here.
Yeah, in fact, I do have a few friends that I can look into. I don't even know if he's able to accept visitors at the moment, but we'll certainly do the first thing now that we've got the information, make sure he's as comfortable as possible, and then we'll look into making sure that he's got an attorney that's competent and do the best we can to help him out with that. And yeah, I'll also try to find a place where we can all kind of get together and exchange information, whether it's on our Skype here or whatnot. But certainly we've got private channels that we can set up for that type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just not an option to ignore a friend, especially somebody that needs you.
You can't, and that's not. I'm just saying. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I was not saying not to
It was a
do it.
rhetorical question. I
Yeah.
understand. Yeah.
And what I am saying is to just make sure we got our bases covered, understanding the nature of the beast. Here's what I would propose doing. Okay. The second letter, we didn't read it, that came in at the same day yesterday. It's a lot more upbeat. He actually had a chance to meet with another private attorney who reviewed his case, said the public defender was doing the right thing, was not dropping the ball, and basically gave her the support. Again, I would like to see what the probable cause is, what's the actual weapon he brandished is, to see how it, what they're saying versus what Alex had just said when I just read. Was it just a BB gun? What actual what was the probable cause? Who called it in? Why? What neighbor called it in? What was the whole reason for this escalation? I would just really like to know that. Inquiring minds want to know this. So in his second letter that he wrote, Major, he said that he's confident that he'll plead guilty to a lesser charge of just plead guilty to some kind of lesser charge, and that he'll be released for time already served. Maybe so.
That's just, I mean, I hope. Oh God, yes, but I mean, what is?
Yeah.
But to be able to plead to a lesser charge and walk away from a $2 million cash bond.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm just like astounded.
Let me read the second letter. It's dated July 6, 2018. Okay, the good news is I am losing weight and have dropped at least 20 pounds so far since I've been here. I'm exercising quite a bit and I'm starting to get into shape. Thankfully, my shoulder is healing and is doing much better. The Bible study classes are fun, and I've made friends with one pastor who adheres strictly to King James Version and lets me play the upright piano when we go out for the weekly lesson on Mondays. I've made some friends here, and I'm keeping myself busy. That's all very positive. Okay.
Good.
So he goes and says there's any type of you can send emails via the Contra Costa County website somehow to the West County Detention Facility by using my booking number on the outside of the envelope. So the booking number is what is, I guess, is key. I don't know what that booking number is. I guess that's what I was missing when I sent the letter and it was returned to me. So, okay, so let me just read what he says about what he thinks his private attorney is telling him he thinks will happen. I want to get you to take on it. I got to go through it here. Okay, well, now it's afternoon on Saturday the 7th, and the private attorney sent by my bass player just visits me, and now I know with certainty I was not allowed legally to possess a firearm despite the expungement and being told by the Count Kirklick I could. This is on a private complaint earlier that he had in his record. Okay. This attorney left copies of the case study establishing precedent. Now armed with this, I got from him independent second opinion that I'm taking the best course of action currently. He thinks this is most likely not going to trial, and I'm doing the right thing and staying put till the end of August, and he feels confident I'll be offered a deal if I plead guilty to the gun charge. So he wants whatever the weapons charge is. So in this letter, it's actually like it could be more than just a BB gun. So this is what I don't know. That's why the probable cause, was it a 22? Or was it a pellet gun? Was it a BB gun? What was it? So he's thinking about pleading guilty to the weapons charge. But here's the issue. What if you plead guilty to the weapons charge and the judge says, well, then you plead guilty. The rest of it is, why $2 million bond on a simple little weapons charge like that? Get out, time served.
Yeah, that's just crazy. All of it. I think that, I don't know, maybe they're attaching the terroristic threats. I'm surprised they didn't hit him with a hate crime of some sort. But yeah, I mean, it's all quite curious. I just don't. I don't have enough information to make sense of any of it.
He did say that there was another charge added to it. He didn't know what it was, but they've been piling up charges on it. He did make sense that. Yeah, it's just. Says of all the discovery, he says he says I have received copies. So he has received copies of all the discovery, including police reports. And these investigators reached out to my stepsister and sister, who didn't help by expressing their expert opinion, that I had, quote, mental illness problems due to my conspiracy theories. And now they too feared for their safety should I get released.
Oh, jeez. Oh, sorry, let me get this.
Are they coming after you now too?
No. Sorry about that, Drew.
You better get out of San Francisco. At least, do you have some flowers in your hair? I don't know. Do you have to?
I don't know. I don't know how they found me, but they found me. Sorry about that. I'll keep this thing muted.
They're not hitting you with that siren weapon, are they? Just to make you go crazy. Oh my goodness.
What?
What?
And then.
Oh, we got to laugh at this, folks, or we cry. So yeah, he goes on and said, my sister went so far as to share her expert opinion with an FBI friend of hers, and investigators said they'd inform her via Vine link when I do get released. Wait till you see what these people are saying about me, True. You can't make this stuff up. Everyone in my family is raising a glass in hopes I am self-destructing so as to prove them all right in their narcissistic efforts to make a scapegoat out of me. Sick. Wow. Isn't that just right out of the PSYOPs handbook?
I know he had differences with his family before and was concerned about that, but yeah, this is just too much. It's way too much. This is a time where you're supposed to help people, and that's what we're going to do. Okay,
so again, if you're listening to this show and you want to just donate what you can, let me get this out, and this is again from his letter. Add money if you can to CCL85K. Oh my goodness! I think it's 4135. I wrote it down earlier in the chat line using mysmartdeposit.com. So he says I need as many weekly contributions as I can for the duration of my stay. Please also relay this info to Mr. Rowe, Mr. Burdock, Kevin, and Dominique. So this is what we're doing tonight, and anybody else that's there. I mean. Wow. People, here's the deal. Major. People say, well, it doesn't involve me. He probably got what he deserved. Folks, this most definitely does involve you. Because if they can do this to a guy like Alex Stewart, they can do it to anybody. Okay? I'm here to test again in the closing segment. I've known Alex for well over a decade. He has a tendency to be very outspoken. He's sometimes vitriolic, but he's never been to the point of being have his mind so different. His personality is markedly different. Okay, either he is using drugs and or alcohol to a large extent, and if so. It would wear off, you would think, or he has absolutely been a victim and targeted by the most heinous of Michael Aquino psyops. Period. And if you don't believe they exist, then by all means just keep drinking that Kool-Aid. I'm here to tell you they do exist. And finishing up my story, when I was, as I gave the review to the psychiatrist, that was appointed by the judge and a medical doctor, and answered the questions, I laid it out for him. And you know what the result was after an hour and a half of stating my case? Their response to me was, "You've scared the bejesus out of me." Because you know what? You're extremely logical. You are not crazy. You have tons of evidence. I said, thank you. Now, what are you going to do about it? Ignore it? Because you see, now we're talking about us, we the people. Like Senator Church said in the transcript, how do we know you're not targeting the SCOTUS? How do we know when you're not targeting the Senate committees? And they just smile and says, how do you know we're not? And they lie, because it's their power. That's what these are power mad, sick individuals, folks. They're the ones that's sick, not Alex Studer. So, your comments.
Yeah, it's trying times for him, and we're going to be there for him best we can, and hopefully when we need to I know, there's okay, so that's part of the whole game, is that anyone that's going to be talking about this thing is you're going to be now. It's kind of got this built-in fear. It's a perfect self-defense mechanism for the entire program. Is that you're nuts if you talk about this, or who knows? Now you're targeted, and of course that's another issue. It really is one of those things that the instant reaction is for somebody to just flip around and say, "Oh, you're crazy, you're nuts," but that's fine and good over at the HN and the Goldwater, because we embrace other people's ideas, no matter how off the wall they are. Everybody's got a right to speak and to converse, and unfortunately, in this day and age, with the complete destruction of privacy, that we have to use and set up an environment for people to do it anonymously. And it's a shame, because I know a lot of people would really, really love to use their real names, but they just simply can't because of the backlash and because of this targeting that's going on. So, and here, especially in San Francisco, I mean, you can't express your own political opinion here without having fear of something bad happening to you. It's outrageous. This is no longer the United States. This little peninsula that I'm on right here it certainly doesn't feel like it. And I'll tell you, I mean, the number of people I've talked to are very, very concerned about because there's no sign of anything slowing down. They're embracing this entire thing. So,
indeed,
I don't know. I mean, maybe they do need to cut this thing off. The peninsula at least, and kind of make it its own little republic. So, anyway.
Well, I want you to tell Alex for me that, and anybody that's a part of our team, I will do this for him. I'll make the offer. I'm again, like I said at the first part of the show, I'm 90% convinced. I can't be 100% on anything, but 90% is pretty strong based on my research that Alex has been targeted. I give him the benefit of the doubt that he's not using alcohol, was not drugging, or this type of thing. And the personality change was so drastic. That's why I have to say that. Okay. I will provide to them the same equipment that I've developed to protect me. Okay, I will do that for them. It's a simple little device. You plug it in. It actually broadcasts a jamming signal all the way around your house and up to about 5 stories high. Okay, it works. It's a radio frequency jammer that you can't even tell it's working until you tune into the FM dial at 100. And you can hear the jamming signal. I'll make this available, okay, to you, Major, to Alex. when and if he gets out, he needs to have this thing going, even make it portable. Okay, it sure makes a difference when I turn this on. My dogs react like, okay, it's better. I know it's working, and I know I really believe I've had this thing going on with me as an attack. It's not just this time. It's been multiple times, and each time I just make sure I turn my jammers on a lot more frequency. And the other thing that I do, I don't mind saying, I don't fear dying. I don't fear that, maybe it's crazy for me to say, well, because I've already been on the other side. I had a near-death experience in 1989. I don't fear dying. And so when God, I don't believe anymore. I know that there is an intelligent design. I know there is a supreme being that loves us. And that is all that really drives me more than anything about jamming frequencies or whatever. I submit that the love of God is more powerful than any psychotronic beam. You just got to understand that that's available too as a defense. When the Bible talks about putting on the whole armor of God, Paul writes to Galatians about this. Yeah, the armor of God is protection against these weapons, because demonic individuals, demonic beings are frequencies of sound and energy. That's who they are. See? So to protect against this is a spiritual warfare. It really truly is, I submit. When all the dust settles and all of this, it's a person's ability to find and to worship their God that's being attacked here, ultimately. That's what I see it. Well, with that, I know we're out of time. Go ahead and just leave us with whatever you need to have. Dom just posted that the information for Alex is in the chat room, the contact information. Thank you, Dom, for that. Let's help this brother. Okay, let's do what we can to help him.
Absolutely, and of course, Alex isn't here to do it, so I will. You can find out all of this, ironically, at his site, which is labvirus.com, and we'll be simulcasting some of this stuff, and we'll put some information when we get everything together. We are simulcasting right now, but we'll go ahead and post this as an article and see what we can do to help out a good friend and get to the bottom of this. Really, really get to the bottom of this.
A couple of weeks ago, too, we did a show on the limbic arc technology. Okay.
Yeah.
The more I dig into this, we're actually devising part of that program to be a protector of, like this frequency I'm talking about. It can jam it. That's a real thing that we're working on, and right now Dr. Cook is talking to some heavyweights to do this, to counteract it, because it's real, folks. It's just as real as the homeopathic realities that make this thing work to begin with. So
that's a brilliant idea.
Anyway, we're trying to do the best we can. I know that it works for people. I've had target individuals I've given these jammers to that have been remarkably helped with it. So it's anecdotal in nature. I don't know if there's a next generation that'll be able to block the blocker. I don't know, but I know for the time being we're successful in what we're doing with it. It's real. Major, thanks so much. Let me know. Keep me in touch. Keep in touch with me on how it goes when you go in with Alex. Dom is there too. Be sure to utilize Dominique as well. I'm sure he'll be there to help you as well. Okay?
Will do, sure.
Okay, I don't know if we have any bump music. We're ending. We're done. Okay. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Talk to you next week.
Okay, guys, we are clear.
All right. Thanks so much.